Welcome to our symposium, Frontiers in Women's Global Justice, Research on Sexual Violence, Memory, and Trauma. I'm Professor Heather Flo from the School of Psychology at the University of Birmingham in the United Kingdom. I'm the discussant for today's symposium. On behalf of the presenters, thank you for attending. I would also like to thank the presenters for delivering fascinating talks that address how theory and research can inform violence prevention initiatives and build more effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions at all levels. It's my pleasure to highlight some of the key messages in their talks. Before I do that, a little bit of background. We're giving this symposium to respond to the UN 2030 Agenda, which pledges to eliminate poverty and shift the world onto a sustainable and resilient path where no one will be left behind. A particular relevance to our aims today is Sustainable Development Goal 16, which is about promoting peaceful and inclusive societies for sustainable development and providing access to justice for all. It's important to highlight that children, women, and men are affected by sexual violence globally, with the vast majority never able to attain justice. Many are left with lifelong chronic health problems, which limits their well-being and prosperity. Indeed, it's estimated that more than half of sexual violence victims globally are children. And while men are all too frequently survivors of sexual violence, these offenses predominantly affect women and girls. For this reason, Sustainable Development Goal 5 is also relevant to this symposium. SDG 5 aims to achieve gender equality, including eliminating all forms of violence against women and girls. In countries around the world, lower socioeconomic standing combines with prevalent cultural norms that expose women and girls to a high risk of violence. Our symposium gathers cutting-edge researchers from around the world, including the US, the UK, Australia, and Kenya. And we're delivering a series of talks that are on innovative methods, initiatives, and data from projects that seek to address sexual violence and increase survivor victims' access to vital services and justice. The research also aims to improve the evidence base that's needed to prosecute cases, while at the same time using methods that reduce psychological harm to victim survivors. There are several things that I want to note from the talks. First, the talks highlight the role of alcohol in sexual violence cases, with cases often involving intoxicated victims and perpetrators. This raises challenges for investigating and prosecuting cases. Alcohol intoxication impacts credibility and perceptions of statements and testimony, of memory evidence. In the presentation by Dr. Lauren Monds, who is from the University of Sydney, she outlines last-mile challenges that need to be addressed by research to increase the strength of testimony and statements in cases that involve alcohol. Next, we have a presentation by Ms. Laura Stevens, who is a PhD student in the School of Psychology at the University of Birmingham. She presents empirical data on the accuracy of memory for sexual consent, which is an important matter on which sexual offense prosecutions nearly always hinge. The evidence in the form of statements and testimonies given by complainants inform whether to bring charges at all, and if so, what type of offense should be charged. So it's important to ask, how accurate is this testimony, and is its reliability and accuracy influenced by alcohol intoxication at the time of the incident? Both of these talks challenge some common misunderstandings about alcohol and memory and highlight the need for further research and evidence-based guidance for legal practitioners. Another notable highlight is that the talks in the symposium underscore the need for cost-effective technological solutions for bolstering suspect-centered sexual violence investigations. In her talk, Sarah Rockowitz, a PhD student from the University of Birmingham in the School of Psychology and in the School of Nursing, will talk about some of the first systematic data gathered during the COVID-19 pandemic about the obstacles faced by adult and child survivors seeking post-rape care services in Kenya, a low-income country in which gender inequality is pervasive. The challenges faced by survivors and forensic medical legal practitioners in contexts like Kenya are shared around the world, including in the global north, as police and other public services, as well as researchers, face politicized funding cuts. In another talk by Jess Cotton, who's an undergraduate student from the University of Cardiff, who did an internship in the School of Psychology at the University of Birmingham, we'll talk about research that she is doing that's a systematic review of gender-based violence reporting apps worldwide, which she refers to as GBVxTech. These apps have been brought about by victim survivors who are facing a growing need to report what happened to them, even if anonymously, and they're doing so because they feel disenfranchised and have disengaged with legal systems that are often more skeptical than supportive of rape complainants. In Jess's talk, she asks whether the methods being used by these apps adequately preserve and protect the testimony and statements and enable and support investigations should the incident be reported. In a final talk, Mary Catlin from George Mason University in the US, who's a PhD student in the Department of Criminology, will talk about her research that advances our understanding of victims' just world beliefs and discusses the practical implications for professionals working with and studying victims of violent crimes. Together, these talks raise important new questions on how technology, research that involves victim survivors, and the revitalisation of theory can successfully enable greater access to justice and end violence against women and girls. I'll conclude now with a few recommendations that arise from these talks. First, we need technologies that enable the collection of real-time data to discover crime hotspots, to study the nature of these incidents, and link crimes committed by serial perpetrators to apprehend prolific offenders, prevent crimes from happening, and to enable investigations and successful prosecutions. Second, there's a need to involve sexual violence victims in researching and evaluating solutions. There are many problems that can't be detected or solutions that can't be unlocked without speaking to survivors who have been through the system. There are several excellent guides on involving affected communities in research, such as by the Better Research Collaborative, which you can find online to engage survivors in research that you're doing. Another recommendation is that we need to have suspect-centered investigations. Rape and sexual assault tends to focus on the victim, with his or her veracity, memory, and character being scrutinized at every stage of the process. All of this decreases the engagement of victims in the legal system, the collection of evidence, and the likelihood, ultimately, of successful prosecutions. There is a welcome shift occurring in the UK, whereby investigators are moving towards suspect-centered investigations, which analyze the suspect's behavior rather than that of the victim to effectively build cases. Other jurisdictions should follow suit, as this suspect-centered approach is promising for clearing and prioritizing cases, thereby preventing crimes and increasing access to justice. Finally, there is a need, especially in the area of sexual violence investigations and prosecutions, for evidence-based guidance in the legal system. For instance, there's very little guidance for interviewing victims and suspects who were alcohol intoxicated at the time of the offense. This puts fact finders out on a limb with regard to understanding the memory evidence in these cases and leaves open the possibility that beliefs and false stereotypes lead to inaccurate assessments of the reliability and accuracy of the statements and testimony. I would encourage researchers to work closely with practitioners to innovate solutions. One thing that is very positive in my experience is that practitioners in the legal system are very open to learning a new experience, and it's well worth working with them. Thank you again for attending the symposium. I'm heartened by the presentations today, all of which were delivered by early career researchers. I think this bodes well for the future in devising effective solutions that end violence against people all around the world and enable us to successfully investigate and prosecute cases when these incidents do occur. Please do get in touch with the speakers from today. They'd be keen to send you their papers and to deliver additional talks to your organizations or to answer questions that you may have, or even to start new collaborations with you. Thanks again. These slides are available, so please download them if you'd like to have this information about their contact details. Thanks again for attending, and take care.